In this video, we're going to explore one more type of chemical reaction. This reaction is really similar to the hydrolysis reactions we learned, but reverse. These types of reactions are called condensation. Right? And when you think about the word condensation, what we normally think about is producing water. So we produce water. So it's related to hydrolysis in the sense that water's involved, but in this case, water's a product and not a reactant. Hydrolysis uses water to break a bond. Condensation reactions actually produce water when we create a bond. Okay, so just as a quick overview of hydrolysis, we talked about how when you start with either an ester or an amide, and we'll use an ester here, and you react it with water, you end up forming a carboxylic acid and an alcohol. A condensation reaction is exactly the reverse of this. So it would be starting with an alcohol and a carboxylic acid, and we produce an ester and water. So in hydrolysis, water is consumed. In condensation, water is produced. Okay, so let's think about these condensation reactions from a general reaction perspective and how the reaction occurs, and then we're going to go through the mechanism, which looks incredibly similar to a hydrolysis reaction. Okay, so let's start with our carboxylic acid and our alcohol. Okay, so what you'll notice is that I've very intentionally lined up a partially negative atom with a partially positive atom, right? So this oxygen right here, the partially negative oxygen, is a nucleophile, and our partially positive carbon is a good electrophile. So in this process, we know that we want to break this bond right here. Okay? And we want to form this bond right here. So just like before, we're making a square. I form two new bonds and I break two bonds. Okay, so we create our square. And when we do this, we create two new molecules. So I have my carbonyl. This carbonyl, though, is now attached to the oxygen that was originally in our alcohol. And the other compound we produce is water. So in this case, the OH from our carboxylic acid is partnered up now with the hydrogen from the alcohol. Okay, so the overall reaction process is really similar. You're creating a new bond between oxygen and a carbonyl carbon. You're breaking this bond. You're creating a new bond between oxygen and hydrogen, and you're breaking this bond. Okay, so the process is really similar, suggesting that the mechanism will also be really similar. Okay, so let's walk through this, and I think that you'll see a lot of similarities between this mechanism and the mechanism that we observed for hydrolysis. Okay, so what you'll note here is that we have our electrophile and our nucleophile. So the nucleophile attacks the electrophile, electrons get pushed up onto the carbonyl oxygen, creating an oxyanion. This intermediate is essentially identical to the intermediate that we saw with hydrolysis reactions. We've created a positive charge on one oxygen, a negative charge on the other oxygen. For this reaction to proceed properly, we need to move the positive charge. So we do that by reaching out with this oxygen, pulling off the proton, and moving the positive charge. We now have the positive charge centered on the oxygen that was originally part of the carboxylic acid, and we've moved it off of the oxygen that was originally part of the alcohol. That enables the very last step, which is the reforming of our double bond and breaking one of the bonds with carbon. And the bond that gets broken is the one that's hooked up to the positive charge on the oxygen. Okay, so when we do this, we create our two new molecules, one of which is water. So we see water right here. So we make water, and we also make an ester. Okay, so I hope you see a lot of similarities between this reaction and hydrolysis. That's going to bring us to the end of this specific section of the class. The whole point of going through these reactions and really understanding them is so that we can understand how we build up biomolecules such as fat tissue and lipid bilayers and proteins and DNA. In the next section of the class, you're going to see that these reactions are really at the heart of building and breaking down those molecules.